Hello viewers, Gran Turismo 7, of course as a racing game, is all about trying to beat the clock. Now speedrunning isn't something we'd normally associate with this game, until now. I was recently challenged by a very fast player in the game to try to beat his world record. Here's the guy, Sam himself, challenged me. What he did was go through all the 50 license tests consecutively, getting all gold in 1 hour, 19 minutes, and 2 seconds. Now the master license tests were added about a year ago into the game, and the gold level time is actually quite difficult to get. Not only that, you're driving 50 different cars around 50 different tracks, and so you have to adjust very quickly between each test. But yeah, Master B8, that's the one that I know that I'll get right. Practice that one all the time. Now I wasn't completely sure how difficult this was going to be. I knew it'd be quite hard, but I didn't know it was going to be this hard. Okay, timer has begun. 1 hour 19, 2 seconds to beat. Let's go. Now this first test might look very simple on the surface. You just have to accelerate and then brake and stop in the zone. However, on the first attempt, as you can see here, missing out by 6 thousandths of a second. It's actually a little bit trickier than you might think. You do have to nail your braking zone exactly right. Otherwise, you are not going to be getting a gold. Now, this was the fourth test, and again, on the surface, looks really simple. You just have to turn 90 degrees to the right around a corner. The main problem I was having here is just adapting to each car on the first attempt. How each car handles obviously is very different, and so you have to try and get that right quite quickly. Now Master B8, I was talking a big game about this one beforehand, but I proved to myself quite quickly that I was perhaps not as good at this as I had first thought. Now this was a bit of a sick drift through the second apex here at Suzuka. As you can probably see there, I probably did not expect that to work, and it didn't. So we had to go again. Time was being lost all the time here. Every time we fail, the timer was continuing, but I wasn't passing until this attempt. It took me 4 attempts to do that one, so not completely ideal. We moved to the A licenses, and this is the 12th test in total out of the 50, and it was probably my first big struggle, I would say, out of the entire lot. A close failure there, and another one, very, very close indeed. By this point, 15 minutes into the run, I did eventually manage to pass. A4 though, this one was super difficult, eventually taking me 13 tries. I mean, there is a reason, and that is there's lots of walls, and it's a fast car with not the best handling. So you can see lots of failures until I did eventually pass in just under 6 minutes in total, so not ideal. Definitely a lot of time lost. This test, equally quite difficult. The car, a very classic Chevrolet, and not an easy car to drive. I did eventually get it done. International A7, we're getting through these fairly quickly. You see now hitting the hour mark by this point, but not hitting the apex properly at all, and actually underdriving this car for the first time. And you might notice the real trend here is driving a really fast car, then a really slow car, then a car with no brakes, then a car with loads of brakes, then a car with loads of downforce. And that's the difficulty, I think, trying to adapt and adjust on the fly very quickly to all these different cars. That is where the real challenge lies. Now eventually I did manage to sort my life out and get this one done, but things were not looking good as I was getting incredibly close to the 1 hour 19 and 2 seconds. I've got 1 minute left to do this, and I've still got to do the super license. So this is this is not going to plan. So there we go, the 1 hour 19 and 2 second marker was not beaten on this first attempt, and I still had the 10 super license tests left to go. So this was going to take me at least 20 minutes, but probably a lot longer. Some of these I got through quite okay. We get to ones like this, S7, a really tricky car on a long track. Let's not forget that these super licenses are entire laps, and so if you get it wrong, like this attempt, you have to go around the entire lap again, and then, that's a couple of minutes lost every time you do that. There was this attempt here. I mean, we're on 2 hours now, so this was really not going to plan at all. It got worse and worse. The Valkyrie around Red Bull Ring, not easy at all. There was this mistake. What the hell happened there? I have no idea what happened there. The car is a very strange one. I did eventually managed to tame it. At least I thought I did, until across the line, 7,000ths of a second away from gold. Super frustrating, and I think that sums it up really. The first attempt was not really going to plan at all. I did manage to succeed next time around and get the job done, but I think it's quite clear to say that this first attempt at trying to beat this record was not a success really in any way, shape or form. I did eventually manage to cross the line and get it done in 2 hours, 12 minutes and 3 seconds. Stop the clock! That was a tragically bad run. So as you can probably tell there, guys, attempt number 1, not ideal at all. 2 hours, 12 minutes, nearly an hour slower than the world record set by Sam. So I'm going to have to improve quite a lot. There were definitely quite a few tests there, which I took way too long on. I feel fresh in the mind. I'm going to jump back in and we're going to try and beat this record. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Timer is going. Let's go. Okay, let's try and do this properly this time around. First attempt, 2 hours, 12 minutes. Now, I feel as though, because I've just done the tests, the muscle memory, you could say, is fresh in the mind. First test, succeed first time around. And it's things like this, you know, starting in second gear for this one with 2 traction control, you just remember the details from the first attempt. And I'm able, therefore, to pass it first time around. So first 2 done first time. Test number 3, likewise, getting a gold medal first time. My first mistake on this second attempt came on the 4th test, and this was a test I messed up on the first attempt as well. As, just carried way too much speed in, going into the barrier just to get the restart done quicker. So as if you're going to fail, you might as well fail quickly so that you can restart and get on with trying to succeed. B5, this one, yeah, not my favourite one. Again, it's just that problem of adjusting to each different car and just remembering how they all handle, which isn't always easy to do. Second time around, did get it right. So definitely some time cost there, but nothing too outrageous. These early tests are quite short, usually below 20 seconds. So if you get it wrong, you're costing yourself 20, 25, 30 seconds with all of the restarting in the menus and all of that. Because of course in a speed run, all of the clicking through the menus does count as time, and so you have to take that into account as well. This test here, B7, getting it done first time, very close, 9,000ths of a second. On to B8. Now, of course, we got this run horribly wrong on the first run through, but I proved my technique. No, I didn't. I got it horribly wrong again, and horribly wrong twice again. Not getting gold first time at all. Eventually, I refined everything. Got it down to a T. Crossing the line. We get the gold medal eventually. So definitely some time cost there. Maybe about a minute or so longer than it really ought to have been. This one was one of my more favourite tests. A fairly simple test. And it depends on the car, really. I think a lot of the clunkier cars, the ones with slower handling, and were the ones that I didn't like. However, you get to the final exams were never too bad. It seemed as though the longer the test, the slightly easier it was, or let's say the more relaxed the gold time was. And therefore you could underdrive slightly. This is one of those cars where you definitely do have to underdrive, but eventually I did cross the line and it was quite convincingly a gold. It's pretty good going, I think. Okay, 2 minutes up on the first attempt so far. From the first 10 licenses, we move on to number 11, so the A licenses now. And A1 was a test that I did first try on attempt number 1. However, this time, I don't know, for whatever reason, I wasn't able to do the same thing. So, I mustn't assume that I'm going to do all of them better than I did the first try, or first attempt. Some of them, I'm going to make a mistake and do it a little bit slower. Fortunately enough, I did manage to do it second try. However, that's a good, 30-40 seconds lost on that. Now this was A2, and I actually really struggled with this one on the first attempt. It took me 8 tries to do on attempt number 1. However, through, just remembering what I did, just remembering when to power down and how this car handled, I managed to do it first try. that's a good couple of minutes saved on that one alone. A3 was just a hairpin at Autopolis. I wasn't able to do this one first try. However, once you get that ghost reference by doing at least one try, and obviously having the memory of what you just did, it's a lot easier to go through and try to beat the time you just set. I was able to get gold second try. Now A4, this one was one of my worst ones on the first attempt. It took me 13 tries. However here, my first attempt was okay. I knew that if I just tied up this first corner, which I did there, I would get gold, pretty much, and that's exactly what happened. Quite close, albeit less than half a tenth, but it was good enough. Now A5, I was 10 minutes up on the first attempt by this point, and I might have spoken briefly before in saying that the snow licenses were my least favourite ones. It's really hard to get a gauge of how quickly you're going on the snow compared to tarmac. And that really proved to be the case. On my first attempt, this license test, A5, took me 3 tries. On the second attempt that we're going through now, this one took me 15 tries. I don't know what it was, I just could not seem, for the life of me, to get this one right. I was trying everything. I was going narrow, I was going fast, going wide, going narrow, and I was getting it wrong. The timer was ticking on. I was costing myself a lot of time here, even on the exit here, getting a really stupid retry there. However, I just retried my entry technique, just slowed down a little bit more on the entry, and that seemed to be the secret. I did eventually manage to pass it. So 6 minutes lost there pretty much compared to the first attempt, or it's more like, let's say 5 minutes I would say I've lost there compared to the first attempt. We move on to A6, and this one was definitely one I was much more comfortable with. The heavier cars actually handle in such a way that it's actually quite predictable, and I was able to do this one first try. So it was nice to get that one on the board. To get a first attempt done was pretty good, and the same applied for this one. I was able to get to grips with this BMW quite quickly and get this license test done once again first try, and that's what we're aiming for pretty much on all of them. We get to A8, and a 25-second test here at Maggior. There's lots of little things that can trip you up here on this one, but as before, I was getting a bit of momentum in my favour, getting a couple of tests done first try, and crossing the line quite comfortably there, half a second up. So a few tests done there in a good amount of time. We're 21 and a half minutes into this attempt. Now on the 18th test, a mistake, a very silly mistake. This is the first wet test. Another mistake going into the hairpin, just getting the braking zone completely wrong, and I think the thing that was getting to me here was just the pressure of the whole thing. Because it's a speed run, it does put unnecessary pressure on you to drive perhaps a bit too quickly. Managing to get it done third time around. Now the final test of the National A licenses is the Mercedes Black Series around the final sector of Autopolis. And now this one proved to be quite easy. I was able to get this one done first try and get the first 20 tests done. Okay, we have done the first 20 and we took 24 minutes. Okay, straight on to IE International B. Okay, compared to the first attempt, I'm 7 minutes up by this point. This is test number 21 out of 50. So we're getting through them. 24 minutes on the clock so far, so nothing too bad. Most of the time is going to be saved on the final 10 super licenses. However, that doesn't mean you want to get through these ones slowly. First try on IB1. IB2, likewise. This one I got wrong on my first attempt quite horribly. It's quite hard adapting to a car like this, which really just does not turn in very well at all. Lots of understeer, very bad brakes. And then you get to IB3. I really just did not like the ones on the snow. It's really hard to get a reference. It's really hard to get a feeling, and especially to adjust from tarmac, where you have plenty of grip, to snow, where you really just don't have a lot of grip. Get yourself subscribed, of course, if you're new to the channel. Going for 1 million. We're nearly there. I did manage to get that one gold first try, so I was really happy with that. As we then progress on to test number 4, International B4 should I say. And in the NSX around Suzuka, quite a cool test this one. And we really had some good progress here in International B. Quite a few there in a row, first try. Likewise for this one, the Lexus at Watkins Glen. I was quite happy in these heavier cars for some reason. They seem to be much more predictable with their handling, the more modern, heavier cars. And I managed to do that one first try. We then get to a lighter car, the Porsche Cayman GT4. Now I remember this one from the first attempt. I horribly got it wrong and made a massive mistake. It's a slightly longer test by now, of course, 44 seconds for gold. So if you get it wrong, you're losing at least 44 seconds. And that's quite a significant amount of time to add. However, that was not the case here, getting it done first try. How about IB7? Well, likewise for this one, first try again. Heavier, more modern car, which I was able to tame quite nicely and get a goal quite convincingly. And this one, the BMW M2 competition, I should be able to get this one right. It's the car I drive on a daily basis. It's a wet test, but you can turn traction control on, and that was quite an easy gold. IB9, now, as I've mentioned, snow was not my primary strength here. Nor was judging that first corner. I did manage to get it right second try though. Before we get to the final exam of the International B license, so we're going pretty well here. This is the 30th test and I'm on 33.5 minutes. So things are roughly going to schedule, I would say. Now, likewise, again, I mean, it's just these heavier cars, more modern cars. It was quite easy to really just feel the grip. And so I was able to quite convincingly pass and get a gold. All right, that's 30 done. International A. Come on! We move on to test number 31 out of 50. We're getting through them, but of course, all the time, the timer is ticking up. Nearly on 35 minutes now. As on this first test of the International A, I was not able to do it first try, which was a little bit worrying because I was able to do it first try on my first attempt. So I just adjusted my driving. You see there, we have a ghost comparison if you're doing it for the second try. And I was able to adjust. We moved from one Chevrolet Corvette to another. And of course, this one is a lot older, a lot slower, a lot clunkier, a lot worse braking. Bit of a silly mistake there to run over the gravel a little bit too much and cost myself a bit of time. However, I was able to adjust, recall what I did merely hours ago, and drive accordingly to get a gold medal by 1/10 of a second. Master IA3, test number 33, and this one took me 4 tries on my previous attempt. I was going to try and whittle that down to 1. However, that was not going to be the case here. Just not carrying enough speed for the final couple of corners there. Failing by 2/10, and that's quite close, but in racing, in motorsport, that's actually quite a big margin to fail by. And so, wasn't able to do it first try here. It took me 3 tries. We move on to IA4. Nürburgring Nordschleife in the Mercedes SLR. We've got some vibes of Mission 34, and I like that they've done that. Those who played Gran Turismo 4 will remember that fateful mission. Now, I adjusted my driving style here just to be a bit more patient, to get the rotation, then to get on the power, to really utilise this car properly, succeeding there by 0.7 of a second. Now, this one I really did not enjoy first time around, but second time around was quite fine. I was able to actually do this one first try. Quite a difficult test, that one. Likewise for International A6, turning traction control onto 1 really did help quite a lot. Just driving the car really smoothly to minimise the loss of speed from loss of traction. Then we get to International A7, so the 37th test in total. And this one, you might remember, I struggled with first time around. It is difficult going from slower cars to this, which is effectively the grippiest car in the game, or at least one of. However, I did adjust this time, and I was able to get gold by 0.5 of a second. So really fine margins here. If I fail by 1/10 there, or go slower by 1/10, I have to retry the whole thing. And that's going to cost me 30, 40, 50 seconds for every retry. You then get to this one, and this kind of goes against the grain of what I was saying earlier, where I enjoyed the grip of cars in slower, clunkier cars with a lot of grip, or a lot of weight, should I say. This one kind of went against that grain. However, I was able to once again recall what I did, drive accordingly, and get the gold medal. Really close, you know, a quarter of a tenth of a second I did that by. But it was just enough. You just move on. That's the pressure of a speed run. You kind of just have to deliver and get on with it. And I really do enjoy this challenge. And it's something that I would recommend people trying if you are able to. Now, this is the snow test of the International A's, able to do it quite quickly. And then we get to IA10, the final exam, around the Nürburgring, quite a fearsome car and a fearsome section of the track. And this one I was not able to do first try previously. However, here I just really remembered exactly what to do and drive the car accordingly to get a gold medal. And we're looking really good here, guys. 46 minutes and 12 seconds as we cross the line. Right, 46 minutes. How long have I got? Half an hour or 33 minutes to do super license. Oh, come on. Let's do it. Okay, I'm near enough 32 minutes up compared to the first attempt at the start of this video. And as you can probably tell from that, you know, things are going to plan. I have half an hour or so to get these tests done, or about 32 minutes I have to get this done. Now, fortunately enough, the first one, which I was dreading quite a lot, I managed to do first try. So that did save quite a lot of time. The second one, this was the rallycross course at Catalonia in the Porsche. Now, this one was quite frustrating. I wasn't able to do this one first try, and that was a little bit worrying. Half a tenth, or 1/10 away from succeeding. So that's about a minute lost. And we can't really afford to have too many losses like that. Otherwise, this is not going to go to plan. Second time around, adjusting the driving, getting the job done. Super License 3. This one was not one I was looking forward to at all. The Honda Formula 1 car around Barcelona. And this one was fairly close when you consider it's an entire lap. Succeeding there by 4/10 of a second or less than. That's actually not that big of a margin. The fourth test, I was quite confident about this one. However, I made a very stupid mistake here. It's completely understeering wide, just perhaps a bit too much brake pressure at too much speed and too much steering angle. And we go wide. That's a minute or so lost by having to retry and restart and go back to the beginning of the lap. However, the second attempt was to go to plan. I succeeded by 0.8 of a second. And then we get to our arch nemesis, Lake Louise, the Canadian ice circuit, where I just did not feel comfortable all day. However, I think there was a trend developing, which was, it's almost like the longer the test, so let's say this one, 1 minute 42 for gold, the longer the test, the more forgiving the gold time is. So as long as you drive well for an entire lap, then you're okay. We just hit the 1 hour mark there, and we therefore have 19 minutes left to go. So things are getting pretty close by this point. And, I'm very much aware that that timer is ticking up, and that any attempt I get wrong is going to push me ever closer to that benchmark of 1 hour 19. For example, this very simple track limit violation, going too wide on the exit of this corner, almost doing it again on the second try. So you see I'm really pushing here to make sure I get this done. So a 2 minute 6.3 for gold on this test, and I was able to do it the second time around, as you can see, quite close, only 0.3 up. So that was very, very close indeed. We have about 14 minutes left to do the final 3 tests, so theoretically the hardest 3 in the game. I was not able to do this one first try, as you can see, spinning into the wall. However, next time around, adjusting, of course, And this was one of my more favourite tests, I would say. The Mercedes CLK GTR, very, very grippy car, very nice to handle, very predictable feeling, which is, I think, what you want when you're trying to do a speed run like this. And so we passed that one by nearly a second and a half. S9, now this one, the Aston Martin Valkyrie, I was not a massive fan of this. It just handles in a weird way with the gearing, and then of course you have the overtake button as well, so you have to deploy that. So a strange mixture of things to get used to for this test. However, I think I'm scarred enough from my first run through that I can remember exactly what to do. Coming out of a lot of these corners in 4th gear, applying the power gently and then getting onto the overtake button. So the power has to be deployed in a certain manner. And somehow, after channeling all of that memory, I was able to do this one first try. One more. Ho-ho! Come on, guys. We've got 10 minutes, or 9 minutes to do it. Come on, don't mess it up. Let's try not to mess this one up. It's the final test. Test 50 out of 50, Master S10. It's the McLaren MP4/4 around Suzuka. Now, on the first attempt through, this took me 4 tries and over 5 minutes, whereas a gold is 1 minute 44. I couldn't really afford to have many failures here. The timer was sat at 1 minute 10 and a half by this point. So, you know, as long as I got gold first try, I would do this quite comfortably. But it is a difficult car to master. And there is a very weird technique with the double shifting that you might have to master as well. Now, coming through Dunlop, look at this massive moment. Oh my goodness. Lost it on the curb. Somehow managed to recover it and keep going and not let that phase us. I wasn't sure if that was going to slow us down too much and push me into a silver, at which point, of course, I would have to retry and go again. Into the hairpin we go, getting that rotation in 2nd gear, up into 3rd gear on the exit. And this car is a really weird one where you have to kind of shift up quite early and sometimes double shift in order to avoid the very, very slow gear shifting. Coming up into Spoon Corner, quite a difficult corner to get right. So we're driving fairly calmly here with pretty much 1 sector left to go. If we can get this final sector right, we have got the world record. Just a couple of corners. The Fearsome 130R. We should be able to take this flat out in a car like this, as we do. Looking for that braking zone on the left-hand side, hitting the 150, braking just a bit after that. We get into the apex, number 1 and number 2. As long as we don't lose traction here, it's going to be the world record as we head to the line. We get a gold medal by 0.012 and it's job done. It's the world record. Get in there, Lewis. Miracles do happen, guys. Got a world record. All right, let's submit the run. Let's do it. So it's been submitted. That's pretty cool. And there we have it. I am officially a Gran Turismo 7 world record holder. Hopefully this one lasts forever.